Welcome to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. I'm Dr. Cheryl. And my guest tonight, I consider him having gone through a miracle, and it's a wonderful example of unconditional love. His name is Karl Pontau.
Hello.
Karl, thank you so much. I know we have tried getting you on here long time, months ago, but everything's in timing, of course. But after talking to you the other night, I just thought, oh my God, this is an example of unconditional love and a miracle, because what you have come through. So tell us where you came from, and leading up to your because you've had brain cancer at 15. Mm-hmm. So I'm giving it to you, and then I'll ask questions.
So I'm originally from Livermore, California. Grew up in the area with a very supportive family, and grew up doing art, lots of type of art, so drawing, painting, sculpting, Legos. And I knew I wanted to study 3D animation going into undergraduate school because I saw Toy Story, and that was just like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, you can do this, is possible, I want to do that. And then it was a week before my senior year of high school, I got diagnosed with a couple of malignant brain tumors, and before that I've never had this flu, broken any major bones, stung by a bee. I don't think I've ever been bitten by a mosquito.
Wow.
So to get like a cancer diagnosis out of left field was super...
What were your symptoms?
So I started feeling symptoms in January of like 2002, and then it was kind of really general. It wasn't like an acute, like it hurts here, but it was more like I just kind of felt bleh.
Yeah.
And we couldn't really figure out what was going on. And then by August, I had gone from 210 pounds in January to 160 in August. So I lost 50 pounds. And then I started getting some really bad headaches and migraines. Yeah. So I have like the aura in the front, but then it hurt in the front of the head instead of the back, like a migraine. So I got an MRI done up in Walnut Creek, and we had another appointment later that day. And so my family were just waiting around in the cafeteria, and then my pediatrician, who's normally in Pleasanton, called and said, hang on, I need to come see you guys. And we came up, we saw him walking up, and he was crying, and he had the big folder, and that's not good. And he sat us down in a little side room near the cafeteria area. And I remember I was sitting in this big chair where like the armrests were like this high up. So I was kind of hunched like this forward, waiting for him, and he was explaining that he just got the findings, and he pulled out the MRI images and said I had a couple of brain tumors. And it's the only time I've ever been physically moved by someone's words. You kind of like getting punched in the chest, feeling I actually moved backwards.
Yeah.
And it just kind of was such a shock. And then,
totally.
I mean, on one hand it was kind of shocking and scary, but on the other hand it was also kind of a relief, because for 8 months I've been feeling awful, but I don't really know what. So I actually kind of felt nice to know what it was, and that they could do something about it. But then it was, for like the next couple of weeks, everything was kind of like everyone's voices were kind of like the Peanuts or the parents in Peanuts with like a wah 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 noises, where it didn't really feel real for a while.
Yeah.
And I went up to...
Well, that's a harsh reality.
Yeah, especially for someone such a healthy...
15.
Yeah, and not really ever had to deal with anything like that severe health-wise before.
Had your parents or anybody else in your family had?
My dad's father had died from cancer, but he never had it was like liver, and he never had it diagnosed.
Oh.
But it hadn't really been a big thing in our family before. So then, basically my pediatrician said, don't go to your other appointment in Walnut Creek, drive directly to Sacramento. You're having a biopsy surgery tomorrow. And then, so we just drove up there with what we were wearing, and so it was kind of spur of the moment. And then the next day I had a 7-hour biopsy surgery. Basically they cut all along the top of my head. And then it was also one of the weird things where when they basically were explaining it to me, I was still kind of in shock. So really, I remember not being really nervous for that surgery, despite that when they're saying, okay, we're going to cut your head open and poke around your brain. I was like, sure, okay, that sounds great. And I was like, but because it still just seemed like I was watching a film kind of thing.
Right, yeah, not real.
Yeah, and then I was in the hospital for 2 weeks because the reason why I was feeling so bleh was that one of the tumors had damaged my pituitary gland, so it wasn't making the 6 hormones it normally makes. So I was just kind of feeling
Sure.
off, but it was like the whole body kind of
No
feeling
energy?
Yeah, well, no energy. I basically was, one of the hormones is called like desmopressin or something like that. It regulates your sodium and electrolytes by how much water you retain. So normally, the more you have in your system, the more water you retain. I was making none for 8 months. So I was drinking a ton of water, which is why I lost all the weight, because I wasn't hungry because my stomach was always full of water.
Yeah.
And then
Maybe I should do that to lose weight.
it is a way to lose weight. I mean, your stomach can't tell if it's full of water or full of food. So it actually is good. I mean, most people don't drink enough water. I was drinking
Yes. Yeah.
way too much. But and so they had I was in the hospital for 2 weeks because they wanted my sodium and electrolytes to level out. And then I remember after the 2 weeks, I got the biopsy results back, and the guy walked in my room and said, "Oh, you got the good type of cancer," which sounds really weird 2 weeks in. But now, kind of knowing how many worse types of cancer, especially brain tumors, there's some that are a lot worse than what I had. So if you had to pick a brain tumor to get,
Right.
you'd pick the one that's called like malignant germinoma, which is really treatable. The prognosis is great. There's not even like a stage 3 version of it. It's so treatable. So in that sense, yes, I got a good. If you had to pick a type of cancer to get, yeah, it's the one you'd pick. But I'd never pick it out of if it's like healthy or not.
Oh, of
You
course.
never would like
No,
wish
of
it on anyone, but
course.
it's still
No.
if you're going to be stuck with one. And then I had 4 rounds of chemo and 20 days of radiation, and so I finished treatment on New Year's Eve in 2002 and started 2003 done with treatment. And so I was still able to graduate on time because not just getting all the help from friends and family, but my school, went to Granada High School in Livermore, but they were awesome. They pulled a bunch of strings with my schedule. They got me a tutor, and they basically made sure that I wasn't going to miss out on graduating and going to college. And then people I hadn't seen for 5 or 10 years are old colleagues, and my parents are giving food and gifts and other support. But so everything, my friends and family and the school and everyone around me that didn't feel that close to still came together and really were supportive. So it really inspired me.
You were really blessed.
Yeah, just the people kind of came together and supported me when I needed it most. So really, and it helped me realize that was something I wanted to do to give back, because everyone goes through struggles in their life, even if it's not as severe as cancer, but everyone needs some help with something at some time. So I kind of knew I wanted to do that with whatever I did in my life. And then in undergraduate school, I went to CSU Monterey Bay, and they had this student digital art and design contest that I made an animation for. And they had like a screening, and so there were about 1,000 people in the room. I knew maybe 10, but I still, like, everyone in the room was laughing at a joke in my animation. I just had this moment of like, this is so cool. I can reach all these people without knowing them by making animation. Yeah, I was like, that's
Now,
awesome.
before you go on with that, which I want to hear about because I'm fascinated, I looked at your website and I'm fascinated by your graphics, and animation. But you shared the other day about your eyesight. I am just, it's almost unbelievable how you can do what you're doing when you have the eyesight that you have, because that was my understanding, is that it left some of the cancer affected.
So the pituitary gland in your brain is like that big, and there's a part under the pituitary gland that's where your 2 optic nerves cross, and it puts the 2 images together because each of your eyes makes a separate image. And then those images, once they're put together, go to the back of the brain where the images are processed. And so that little part where it puts the images together got damaged by the same tumor that attacked my pituitary gland. So the glasses I'm wearing have these prisms in them, and so it overlaps the 2 images. And so my brain realizes it's the same thing and ignores one of them. But without them on, I see 2 of everything because one of the side effects of the surgery was that all the muscles on the right side of my face kind of tightened up, so my right eye was turned out a lot more. So I had some surgery to get that turned in.
Can't tell.
Yeah, well, if I take the glasses off, it should go off more to the right.
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah. So I mostly use my left eye for seeing, and I can always tell if I'm working on the computer too long that my eyes are getting tired. The second image just goes whoop and pops out, so I'm like, I need to take a break. So it took a little getting used to that. I remember one time after I got home, I was trying to pour a drink into a cup, and I thought it was like this, but really it was like that. So I just kind of poured it onto the table, and I was like, and for a while I was like putting a key in a keyhole.
The adjustment.
I think it'd be here, but when it finally touched, it was actually down here. So there's a little double take in my brain where it the eyes weren't given the same input as my like
Physical
touch.
Yeah.
And so it's like that disconnect is a little jarring. So I've gotten used to it and adapted to that, but it's something you can kind of learn and adjust to. And some things that like reading for a while, the stuff on the right page would go onto the left page. So I had either hold the book up until I got these glasses. Otherwise, I'd have like the words on top of each other,
Oh,
which is
that's
like tricky.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Oh.
But another weird thing I noticed is that the further away the thing I'm looking at, the further away the images are. So stuff like driving wasn't really affected because if I'm driving on the freeway, the cars are far enough away that the second image is way over there.
Oh.
So it took some adjusting too, but it's.
How long did you have to wait to drive? I mean, you were 15,
Well,
so you weren't driving,
I
but
actually, so when I was admitted into the ICU for the surgery, they took all the stuff out of my pockets because I was going to be wearing a gown for the next 2 weeks.
Right.
And so my learner's permit was in my pocket.
Oh.
And then when we tried to, we realized after I got done with all the treatment and stuff, I basically needed to take the test. Like I had 1 day to take it, and they couldn't find the permit because it got misplaced and all the things that were more important at the time. So I had basically 1 day to take my driver's license tests. And so I had to go to Walnut Creek because that was the only place I had an appointment. And so and my mom went with me. And so she was waiting in the waiting room at the DMV and pacing. She said, and then I did the test and did fine. And I was walking back in. And I thought it'd be really funny if I made it look like I failed. Because it's so big of a deal for me to pass on that day. So I walked in all like, and she was like, and I went a big smile, and she was relieved that I passed. But I made for a moment she was like oh no, he failed, and I was about to freak out. And she still gives me dirt for that.
Yeah,
she's
well.
like, how dare you like play with my emotions? It's like, well, it was. Well, I couldn't resist. How often am I going to get a chance to do this? So yeah, it was.
I'm sure she forgave you.
Yeah, she forgave me. I mean, it was one of those rare moments to get out of fun with someone like that. But it's not a regular thing I do. But it was.
So, do you have siblings?
I have one younger sister. She's a little less than 2 years younger than me, and she was very understanding and supportive. And she's very independent. And I think I've been talking with her, and she's mentioned that kind of time period helped her kind of learn how to take care of herself really well because.
All the attention
So she got used to just doing everything herself and making sure she got all her homework done and got to school and
so good for her.
And she's now an assistant city planner at the city of Livermore. She has 2 master's degrees, one in urban planning, one in sustainable systems. She's awesome, and we're really close. We were close before I got sick. We kind of both realized at the same time if we stopped telling on each other, we get away with more stuff and just like stop getting each other's way, and so we're really close. We get along really well, and she lives in Livermore as well, and she's doing what she loves, and we're really close, and it's a lot of fun hanging out with her and having her so close. She didn't like move across the country,
Right.
So, but yeah, she was very supportive, and I'm happy to have a sister that's so close. I know a lot of friends who have siblings that they don't really get along that well.
Right, yeah. So getting back to your eyesight, when your eyesight went off immediately after the surgery, or?
It's hard to. I don't know exactly when I noticed it was off because. When I woke up from the surgery, basically it looked like someone had just punched my head a bunch. A lot of swelling. My right eye was swollen shut for a while.
Yeah.
I don't have any pictures of when I was that swollen, but I just know I woke up and it was didn't hurt because I was on morphine, but I was still just like a lot of bandages on my head and really groggy.
But you could see out of your.
Well, the right eye was swollen shut for a while, and so once the swelling went down, I could open it. But I still was it was more focused on like the head pain and then I don't really know the exact point. I noticed that my vision is weird.
Yeah.
So I got that whole 2 weeks is kind of a blur.
Oh sure.
I just remember I ate a lot of peanut M&Ms when because it was like the little treat that I would get, and then I just a lot of visitors coming in and a lot of taking meds and there was I woke up from the surgery, and it was really the first time coming off a general anesthetic before, so everything seemed like really far away, and there's like muffled, like the people's voices. And about 30 seconds after it laughed out, it went whoop, 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 and like zoomed in, and I was kind of awake again, which was a very weird experience. But then I didn't feel anything in my head because I was on morphine, and it wore off, and it really hurt. And then they're like, "Oh, we'll give you some painkiller for it," and they gave me like 1 shot of morphine. And by the time the plunger was done in the little thing, I couldn't feel, and I was like, "Wow, that's kind of
Fast.
scary." And I was like, and so I understand like how dangerous like opioids are, and they switched me to Vicodin after that. But I was really pleased. But it was really funny because they gave me this thing, and I was like immediately kind of swimming, and then my mom was like, "Let's do some social studies." It's like, I'm not gonna be able to listen to anything. I'm gonna go fall asleep now. I'm completely out of it. So it was, that was all, like and the last time they gave me the morphine, I was on Vicodin for a while, and it was focused more on the head pain rather than what my eyes were doing. And then, but it was also nice to like when they gave me like the first dose of the hormone supplements once they realized what I was missing. And after like 1 dose, I was already like that whole kind of blah feeling was gone, and so that was really nice because I hadn't felt kind of normal besides the head thing for a long time. So it was
welcomed.
I was like, oh, I don't feel like blah all the time. Besides the head being cut open.
So when did you get your glasses?
I had before they turned my eye in, I had a different pair that were a lot thicker, so thick in fact they wouldn't really sit on my nose because the bridge wasn't
too thick.
It was too it wasn't wide enough.
Oh.
So I had those, and they worked, but it was like if I looked down, they just kind of fall off my head. So they did the surgery to turn the eye in so they could lower the prescription down. And so it's I've been used to it now for so long. I was already back at school, so probably a few months after, probably not till like the next year we actually did the surgery. And before that, I just would close one eye when I was like reading and stuff.
Right. So you could see with your left eye?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of like a focus correction on these, but mostly it's just the prisms. So, I mean, you're a little blurrier, but it's not that bad. So, it's I still, even with the glasses on, I still mostly use my left eye. If I close my left eye, everything shifts over like an inch, which is interesting. But there's a.
Well, do you think that'll ever change?
No, I mean the part of the brain that got damaged is so like in the center that it's really invasive to try and get anywhere to try, and it's not gonna fix. If it hasn't fixed itself now, I doubt it's gonna fix it. Like anything they would do to make it change is probably really invasive and not worth doing. And the glasses do such a good job unless I'm talking about it now, so I see it. But if most of the time I don't even notice it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you talk about how can you animate with vision like this, it's not that big of a hindrance to animating. It would be hard. Well, the hardest thing, like, if I had aspirations of being like a baseball player, those would be shot because I can't catch a ball now because I have no depth perception. So trying to catch anything thrown at me, I'm just like, okay, I dropped it because I just can't.
You mean
track.
right now, today?
Yeah. Because I see like the images do this, so I just can't really track stuff in the air.
Yeah.
So if my goals were to be like a football or baseball star, those have been in shot because I can't catch.
Yeah.
But for animation stuff on the screen, that's no problem.
Well, I've seen some of your work, and I'm fascinated because there's such a diverse.
Yeah, that's one thing I really like about it. It's I went to school for 3D character animation, but I switched to motion graphics after graduating because it's more versatile and it's a lot more affordable for more of the people I'm trying to help. But that's one thing I really like is that it's never the same process twice. It's never the same problem to solve twice because everyone has a different story to tell and everyone has different people trying to tell it to, and the message is different. So I love problem solving and puzzles and learning about people. So the whole process of learning what my client is looking for, what their challenges are, what they want to do when they solve them, or all these things help me know the best way to help them, and then once you're going to know what they want to say and who they want to say it to, figuring out a way that's unique and different to convey that message in a way that's engaging and fun, but also effective, and helps them reach their goals. Because I can make stuff that's entertaining and fun, but if it doesn't help people, it's not really as fulfilling, or it's not really worth making for someone, or having someone pay me to make it if it's not going to help them be more successful or save them time or bring in more business, whatever they need it for. So it's really fulfilling for what I do, is I get to help more people than I could if I wasn't doing animation, help them be more successful. Especially I like helping people that solve problems for their clients. So if I help them reach more people in the community get their problem solved, the business I helped out is succeeding and growing because they're helping more people, and I get a happy client. So just everyone wins in that situation. It's not, there's no downside to it, and it's always helping them a different way. So there's so many different stories people trying to tell, and different ways that animation can be used to help businesses of pretty much any size. That it's hard actually when I was kind of planning like my business and building like the vision and mission. I'm trying to think of who my target client is. It was really hard for me to narrow it down because there's so many people I could possibly help. I haven't come across a business yet I couldn't possibly help. Some don't need it. Some, like, I wouldn't really be excited for helping, like a tobacco company. If they paid me like $1 billion for an animation, so I could offset all the damage I do.
Oh no.
But I doubt Philip Morris is going to be knocking on my door anytime soon anyway.
So
But
you have ethics.
surprisingly, yes, I actually have ethics, yeah.
Surprisingly.
So yeah, I like hearing people's stories and learning about what makes them tick and what they're passionate about. And everyone has something like that inside of them. Oftentimes they don't know it yet, but there's something they're really passionate about, but they don't know how to communicate it to people as effectively as I possibly can, because I've studied it. And I grew up listening to stories from my dad. He tells really good stories, like verbally. I remember my sister and I would be like on the edge of our seats, like practically falling out, waiting for him to get to the punchline of like a story. There's a bunch of kind of family stories in my family I heard growing up.
Is your dad still living?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, what's interesting is last year on his birthday, he was diagnosed with a testicular cancer, but it was the same type of tumor as the ones I had. But he's fine now. But it was like, so we think it's probably just a genetic predisposition to this type of germinoma, because his dad died of some type of cancer that he never got diagnosed, but it probably could have been that. And so he had it and I had it. So he has a brother, so he called him and was like, if you ever start feeling weird, get an MRI done, because it could be this type of tumor. So it's just, there's nothing that was kind of weird about it, because I didn't really do anything to cause it. And people get lung cancer because they smoke, or they have some other risky behavior that causes cancer. But it's just kind of things can happen that cause tumors. And since then I've learned that like you probably have like one cancer cell in you right now, but your immune system gets rid of it, and it's the ones that are kind of can hide themselves from in your immune system that become cancer. So
Activated.
Yeah. So there's one of the kind of silver linings, I suppose, is that it's given me a chance to learn a lot more about the brain and cancers, and there's so much that we're learning about those things that are really exciting. But it's I'm happy that I know what I know, but I'm not exactly excited to like want to go through the same experience to learn more. I'd rather just look it up online.
Yeah, absolutely. God, no. Do you ever talk to kids or adults that have?
Yeah, actually, I actually was connected through like networking. There's a guy, awesome guy named Kirk, who introduced me to another brain tumor survivor. Her name's Eve Rollman, and she is living with a very rare type of brain tumor that it's not quite malignant. She's had it for about 18 years, but they call it, the nickname for it is sleeping dragon, because if they try and give her any chemo or radiation, it's going to go stage 4 and just kill her.
Oh, wow.
So she's kind of stuck with it, and it's affected her short-term memory, so she has to write everything down. But she's still, I always feel tired when I'm around her, because she has so much energy and so much excitement and so much passion for life. And so she had an idea of starting a support group for young professionals dealing with brain tumors, and we call it Brainiacs of SF Bay. There's a Facebook group.
Right.
And so the idea is to connect the recently diagnosed with someone who's been through the exact same thing or something similar. Because if you go on like WebMD or something like that, and you look at the survival rates for some of the ones like glioblastoma, the really nasty ones, those stats include people that get it when they're like 60. And if you're 29 or 30, you have a lot better survival rate than someone. So the numbers are kind of skewed. So that if we can connect the person who's just been diagnosed, about like if they're starting a new job, starting a family, and they get this out of nowhere brain tumor diagnosis, and we can connect them with someone to show them that, yeah, it's going to be really bad for a couple months, but here's someone who's been through the exact same thing. They're healthy. They're doing
There's
what they
hope.
love. Yeah, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and also that person can now kind of guide them through the
Right.
treatment. It's okay, so
And support.
about like week 2, you want to get this type of stuff to help you like deal with some of the side effects, or like make sure you have someone who can do X, or like just make the whole process as like simpler, because it's not, you're not longer going through something unknown. There's someone to kind of guide you through it.
Yeah.
And so the whole idea is we want to build a kind of phone tree. So when someone gets connected with us, we've been reaching out to cancer groups and support groups around the Bay Area. Someone gets connected to us, we learn what they're dealing with, find someone that we know that has had the same thing, get them
Right.
connected on the phone, and then they can take it from there. And then every like quarter or so do like a potluck kind of thing where everyone gets together and hangs out. But it's really low complexity right now. But I'm really excited for it because it's a great way to help people kind of navigate this difficult part of their lives. But it's while also giving them like a little hope and reason to keep going and pursuing their dreams, that they don't have to give up on their life just because they get this nasty diagnosis. Even if
Well,
it's,
and they have an example.
yeah, I mean, there's she had done this once before in Houston. She's originally from Houston area, and so there's a Brainiacs of Houston or something like that. And so she has, one of the guys had one of the worst ones. I think it's like the glioblastoma. He was given like 6 months to live, and that was like 5 years ago, and he's fine. So there's, it's fun to see these people and meet these people who have similarly impressive stories, and just you can tell they appreciate the day-to-day and the little minutiae of life a lot more, because a lot of times you see people complaining about stuff on Facebook like, I got my coffee wrong at Starbucks, and it's like people have no idea how lucky
It's
they
so
yeah.
trivial.
Yeah, there's people that would kill to have the wrong Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's
exactly.
so it helps kind of put things in perspective on what's really worth worrying about and complaining about.
And you teach.
Yeah, so I'm an adjunct professor at Expressions College in Emeryville, SAE Expressions College. I teach 2 classes this semester, and it's a lot of fun. I like helping the students. And
Are these like young, all different ages?
it's like
or-
undergraduate age. So,
Oh, okay, okay.
Well, some are older, some are younger, but it's an undergraduate arts college.
Oh, okay.
And so it's helping people learn some of the skills I learned when I was going through school, and some I still use. There was one class I taught a couple semesters ago that was basically helping students prepare for the job market, to help them get their portfolios together, and how to network, and how to get out of college on the right foot and be more likely to find work afterwards. So that was a lot of fun, because that was some things I wish I had known when I graduated myself.
So are you teaching any of your animation?
When I was first hired, I was teaching some 3D motion graphics classes, and they merged that with the regular animation department. So I'm teaching a 3D modeling class, and then I'm teaching a compositing class, which is
So what is the 3D modeling?
So the 3D animation pipeline has a lot of different steps to it. There's like the initial like script writing and concepts, and then there's character design, and then there's some bigger studios even do make like a clay model of what a character will look like, and then there's someone whose job it is to basically make a 3D model of everything, usually a character or props and cars and whatever.
Right, yeah.
And so you basically start with something like a cube, and using a series of tools, change the 3D structure to be whatever you want. And so I'm teaching an intro class for students who have never done it before. And once the model's done, it goes to rigging, which is basically building the strings for the puppet, and then texturing, lighting, animation, rendering, all the VFX. There's a lot of steps, which is one reason why it's so expensive. And I kind of switched to motion graphics for my own business, just because it takes so long, and it's really expensive. And when done right, it looks awesome.
Yeah,
but most people and most businesses don't have the budget for it.
Right, yeah, to do it full blown.
Yeah.
Like Pixar.
Pixar and all the big ones like that.
Yeah, Disney.
A lot of game studios, a lot of games are all 3D these days. So for like your Call of Duty stuff that takes a lot of work. But it's when done right, it looks really cool. And what really made me passionate about it, because I didn't really know you could do animation on computers before. I thought it was all hand-drawn stuff. And so that's what really got me into it. So I still do stuff on the computers, it's in 2D. And a lot of the same principles apply. So there's these 12 animation principles that were come up like Disney when he was starting the company that's now Walt Disney Studios, which is actually his second company. The first one he started failed. There wasn't really a best practices established for animation, so the quality was all over the place, but mostly pretty bad by today's standards. So he sat down with his team, and they came up with these 12 principles that if their animation was going to be considered good and completed, it would have all these aspects to it. And the first one is Squash and Stretch, which is actually the name of my business. So my name of business
I wanted to say, how did you come up with
Squash and Stretch Production? So it's an homage back to that because the same 12 are still taught in every animation class worth taking, and we just use different tools. But it's and motion graphics has 10 instead of 12 because not all of them apply. But Squash and Stretch is one of those things that helps add life and energy and give weight and mass to your objects and help them.
So is that part of the process, squashing and stretching?
Well, if you think about think of old Looney Tunes cartoon where the coyote gets an anvil on the head and splats and reforms. If you were just kind of if there wasn't any really give and take to the characters, they wouldn't seem nearly as energetic
Effective.
or effective or amusing. So
Absolutely.
And it helps kind of establish the world and make it really believable.
And you get to laugh all the way.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing about watching animation, especially on the 3D stuff after studying it, is I look at a scene and everyone's looking at the story. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that must have been taking forever to render. I remember reading something about the opening scene of the first Cars film, the opening stadium scene. And so there's all the different car models that are in the stands and the ones racing, and there's all the lights from all the different headlights and all the reflections from the cars' bodies, and then all the dust and all the just all the things going on. That one frame of that sequence, which was a 30th of a second, so think of a second and then divide it by 30, which is almost too small of a thing to comprehend. Took 7 days to render all the different layers.
Oh, sure.
And so it was, it's this amazing.
What a process.
Yeah, what they can do with that something, and so I really so when I see stuff now that a waterfall or something especially wet fur on like the rats from Ratatouille when they came out the sewers and all wet. I'm like, oh, that must have taken forever to do because getting those dynamics to look believable and the fur to look believable is a lot of work, and I've tried both and was not very good at them. So whenever I see those done well, I'm like, props to you because I don't know how you did that.
Yeah, but do they do that all on the computer, or do they also use props and?
No, so
I mean,
it'll be all. Well, they'll shoot a lot of reference first. They have a live action video of what actually it should look like. So,
okay.
My favorite example of that is when for Frozen, the entire animation team they went up to the Alps and they all had to wear period dresses and walk around in the snow. Even the male animators were wearing the period dresses, and they had to hike them up and walk in the snow. And then they had to make a whole new plug-in called Matterhorn to do the snow, because before the snow looked like packing peanuts when the characters were falling in them, in the snow or walking through it. It would kind of roll around and look really awkward. So they had to write a whole new script. So they had a bunch of references of a snowball rolling down a hill and snow falling, so they can make sure it looked right. And so there's a lot of, they look at what goes on in the real world so they can emulate it in 3D. But all the stuff you see in Pixar or DreamWorks, that stuff is pretty much all, except I guess maybe in WALL-E there's some live action. But besides that, it's pretty much all done in the computers. Mm-hmm. So it's the reason why those films take 4 or 5 years and cost up to millions to get done, because it's not a. I mean, one of the things I try and educate my clients and other people about, that animation isn't something you kind of press a button and spit out an animation. There's a lot more work.
Preparation.
That goes into it. Yeah. All the pre-production and the planning and the script writing, and then all the actual production, and then afterwards compositing it all together and getting the final product as good as it can be is not something that is easily done. But when it's done well, you don't notice it because you're engaged with the story and you're being entertained, and then you just have a good film and a good story. So it's, the best animation or the best techniques are the ones you don't really pay attention to when you're watching it, if you're in the audience, because you're just paying attention to the story and the characters and you're engaged. So There's actually a term in animation called the uncanny valley, which is uncanny valley. So in animation, you're not necessarily going for realistic, you're going for believable. So that's why like Looney Tunes is believable, because the way that it's very cartoonish, and so you can accept an anvil on the head and the character gets up and is fine. So it's like cartoonish on one end, and then there's realistic on the other, and so everything's kind of believable till you get to like almost realistic. And if it's not quite realistic enough, the brain goes, that looks weird, and you stop paying attention to the story, and you really focus on the graphics, and that's bad because when people pay attention to the story, and it's actually the valley's getting smaller and smaller as technology gets better. But the example that I remember from not too long ago was the Polar Express film. The kids in that film, when it gets on the train, the kids pop up, and you're just like, it looks human, but it's not human. Kill it with fire. And that's bad because I'm not paying attention to the story anymore. But it looks like dolls come to life kind of thing, which is really creepy. And that's one reason why, like the first Toy Story film, you don't see many of the humans' heads or like faces, because they didn't have they couldn't do the skin texture properly yet. They didn't have the script to do skin rendering very well, because skin is a lot like the light goes under the layers and bounces back. They didn't have this kind of like subsurface scattering is the term. So the first film was about, they can do like plastics, they did all this stuff about toys. And the later Toy Story 2 and 3, they had that technology for the shaders to do skin better, so you see more of the humans in the second and third films, because they could make it more believable and avoid the uncanny valley of, it looks like a human, but its skin just looks like the toy's plastic, and that's creepy, and you're not paying attention to the story now because you're looking at why Andy's face it looks like Woody's, you know? So there's some things, if you kind of know the history of animation, you can see like, okay, they made that decision partially for the story, but also because they couldn't really do it believably any other way.
Well, and you having the knowledge of animation, you're going to be looking at that, where somebody that's a novice wouldn't even probably notice that so much.
Yeah, so there's definitely some times when I'm watching a film for the first time, I was like, oh, that must have been hard to get that right. Or that's really good effect. But then I'm back in the story.
But that's natural, you know?
Yeah. It makes it fun to rewatch films and kind of play through it and see how they animated certain gestures or motion with the character. Because that's one thing I really like about the character animation is all the human behavior you have to be more aware of to animate properly, because there's a lot of kind of like body cues and body language and status behavior type stuff that everyone does and everyone's kind of aware of on a subconscious level. But if you're going to animate a character that's supposed to behave a certain way, and you have to know consciously what all these little behaviors are, because people will read into it even if they don't know what you're actually doing. So I had to learn a lot of things about kind of like body language and social interaction to be able to animate it. But it makes a lot of really fun just kind of hanging out and watching people, because you kind of read more into what they're doing in a little more conscious level that makes like people watching more interesting. And also good reference, because you can see people in different situations, like, oh, he does that behavior, and it's kind of stored in the back of the head. So if you animate a character doing that, you can remember what she was doing in real life, because that's something you need to be able to do on the screen if you're.
So it's like doing research and studying.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
When I was go to grad school living in San Francisco, like waiting for the bus, and just be like, okay, I got to do some research on what people are doing on the street, because.
Oh my gosh. What I see in San Francisco every day.
Yeah, not everything you want to see, and not everything you want to remember, but there's sometimes it's like some things like when people are trying to do. If you ever like try and do nothing, sit there and do absolutely nothing, it's really hard to do nothing. You're always doing something like with your hands, or you're looking around or tapping your foot. So trying to think of what people do when they're not doing anything. It's really easy to do on the street, because people often like standing around and waiting for a cab or a bus or whatever, and not really doing anything.
But how can you do nothing? Because your brain never, you got to stop your brain.
Doing nothing is really unnatural. So if you're trying to like sit and not change your position, like if I see someone sitting like this, just like, that's like really weird. Everyone's always moving slightly. So when you're trying to think of like, when you're animating a character, like how is this character going to just sit here? So you don't really know what they're supposed to be doing, because you kind of remember like what their character's like and what their motivations are and who the character is, and help you understand what they're likely to do when they're doing nothing. Because when if you're acting on like on screen, actors kind of do that normally. But when you're animating a character, the character is not going to move unless you tell it to. So it can be some of the hardest things to animate or come up with like a good idea of what you want the character to do is when they're supposed to be basically listening or doing nothing, because most of the time we're doing something and not really aware of it. So that's something that I learned in school. That was a surprisingly challenging thing to animate, is someone doing nothing.
Well, listening, sitting still and listening is, but you're still doing something. How can you not do something?
Yeah, but when the script says this character just sitting there, and that's all they give you, the information. The character sits there. So
right.
What does sitting there look like?
Depends on the situation.
Yeah. But it's not something that you can. Most people don't think about what they're doing when they're just sitting there doing nothing. That's just one of the things I remember having a little more trouble with than I was expecting.
Interesting. So how do you see your future, with what you...
Yeah, so I've been working with an amazing networking and business coach named Miley Colmer, and I'm really close to achieving some of the goals I set for myself at the beginning of the year, and I've set some for next year for my business and my life, and I'm in the process of building a referral network with some people that are in kind of similar businesses as mine, and have some goals that I'm excited to be reaching, hopefully by the end of this year. Some including that, kind of getting back to the whole idea of giving back. In my business plan, one of my goals is, for right now that I'm hoping to get to, is I'm going to be able to go out to eat like every other month or so and give the waiter or waitress a $200 tip. Mm-hmm. Just as like a extra bonus, because if I'm making enough to support myself,
right.
I can give that away to someone who needs it more than me. And as I scale up my business, I'd eventually want to get it to be like $500 a month or so, because that's something that I've seen. There's some really great videos online of people doing that. That's really inspiring and just makes a difference. And you never know who's really hurting for money or what they're struggling with, but you can probably guess
there's a lot in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And people that are going to school or like supporting themselves with wait staff are often overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, and I understand the idea that people struggle with stuff during their lives, and it's worth going out of the way to make some sort of effort to help them out, even if you don't really know anything about them or you don't really even make any assessments about their character. Just people need help, and it's worth making the effort to help them out, even if it's something small like that. So I think you had Mark Sackett on here a while ago.
Oh yeah.
And I've been going
Mark's been on here 3 times.
Wow.
But and that was so. Mark's been on here 3 times.
Wow.
But and that was so disheartening, because his last show, the computer did not. It ate the audio. I don't know. We even had the director come down trying to fix it.
Wow.
And I couldn't retrieve it.
That's awful, because he's.
But you know what? It was okay, because it was more of a therapy session. I mean, seriously, it was, and it's okay. I mean, he always teases me about it.
Yeah, I can see him doing that.
Yeah.
But his whole thing with My Gift 4 is something I've been doing ever since I met him. I think that's such a great kind of life kind of pattern or life discipline to practice, where
of course
giving time, skills and talent, network referrals, or money 4 hours a week for the rest of your life without expecting anything back in return. So
right.
For time, I'm doing Brainiacs. Network referrals, I'm in BNI, and I give a lot of referrals for people in that. Skills and talent, I'm doing some social media content pro bono for the Alzheimer's Association local group, and they're up in Walnut Creek area, Lafayette. And then for money, there's like the thing I was talking about before about the big tips, and also if I'm at like a grocery store and someone behind me in line has like a couple of items, I'll just add them to my tab, and just little stuff like that, where it's not, I'm not walking into a room with a briefcase and just making it rain, but it's little things that go a long way to making someone's day a little bit better. And if they're able to pass it along and just kind of propagate that meme of helping people, I think the world will be a lot better if more people were in that kind of
Amen.
mindset
Amen.
of giving and supporting others
Yes.
without judging them first.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so even if it's just one person I can help every so often just that I'm running into, that's totally worth it. And if I'm able to touch more lives with animation, that's one reason I'm doing it. And then when I'm not animating, if I'm just out walking around and helping other people out that I run into, that's makes it fun and rewarding, even if, like I said, I'm not expecting anything back from these people, but I just want them to pay it forward and make the most of it. And that's all you can really expect.
Well, I see and I hear how you totally appreciate what you have been through and the actions that you're taking.
It's one of those things
I
would never want to go through it again, but I can't imagine how different a person I'd be if I hadn't gone through it.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's one of those, like,
well,
complete, like, paradigm shift from anything I've ever been
I mean,
subject to
all
before.
of us, no matter what the challenge is, if we don't have challenges, we don't grow.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of a constant in the human experience is struggling with something, and it's what makes people interesting. And the most famous and successful people in the world failed at some point in their lives and struggled with something, and it's the fact that they overcame them that makes them noteworthy and influencers and worth the praise and admiration they get. Because if you don't struggle and you're not growing, then you're kind of wasting your life, and you're not really making the most of the chance you get, because there's only, everyone gets 24 hours in a day, and the people that are super successful are doing, I mean, obviously there's some people that get dealt a worse hand than others. It's not the only factor, but people that aren't trying to get the most out of the time they have.
Well, and when you go through these challenges, and like what you've gone through, it makes you, if you choose to, of course, and you have, is you become more compassionate too about, for other people.
Yeah, I had cancer really sucks, but I know there's a lot of people way worse than I do, and oftentimes for not any fault of their own. I mean, I got lucky to be born into the family I was born into, in the location and in the time period. I had nothing to do with that. I didn't exist yet, but there's a lot of people that aren't born in that fortunate situations that, for no fault of their own, are have a lot harder.
Well, they have
life.
different lessons to learn.
Yeah, but also I think people have this idea of, like, look down on those that are less fortunate, that are, and think of it as like they're lazy or stupid or not trying hard enough, and it's not fair to judge people on that type of criteria, just because there's always going to be some, like, inequality in life, just because it kind of seems to be the nature of things. But I'm all for doing as much as possible to lower the difference in inequality between the haves and have-nots, and making a conceited effort to help those that need help. And a lot of people need help, and I'm all for doing what we can to make that change.
Well, and it's really obvious that you do appreciate your life and others around you.
Yeah, I mean, I every so often will catch myself kind of bemoaning something that's not worth really bemoaning.
Well, you're human,
Yeah, it just, but there's sometimes I'm like, I'm should be better at this than.
But at least you're aware of it.
Yeah.
Or you become aware of it.
Yeah, but I think one of my, like, shortcomings is I'm still sometimes a little, like, hard on myself. I'm like a harshest critic, so to speak. Where I'll really,
I can relate to that.
I've had trouble where I kind of, like, I keep ruminating about things, like little mistakes I make, where the person I might have, like, made a mistake to doesn't really care about it. But I'm like, so I've been working on some other things, and trying to grow in some other ways besides, like, just.
But then you can look at that error, mistake, whatever you want to call it, and okay, how can I do this better the next time?
Yeah.
Instead of beating yourself up.
Yeah, so I'm learning to do that lately, but there's something that I've been doing a lot of like reading a lot of books about how to like grow and achieve goals and stuff for the business, but also has helped me with some of the personal side of things about kind of being more aware and more mindful and kind of reflecting on what I'm doing, and so I kind of know, okay, that really worked well, or I kind of screwed up that thing, or I'm not doing that very well. So that's something I've found to be really fun and helpful lately, is helped me grow more, because I'm already really mindful about physically what's going on in my body, just because I know what's normal and what's not normal just from being sick for so long. But I'm trying to get more aware of that on more of a behavioral sense. So it's been interesting trying to switch my focus from some of the more physical stuff to more behavioral and mental. And
How about spiritual?
I'm not really into like spiritualism or religion. I don't really. I mean, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any. I don't believe any deities exist. And the term spirituality, I mean, I get there's the kind of people I think are trying to say with that, but I haven't heard a good
felt it.
definition of spiritual that I really can accept. So I definitely know there's some things that people like meditation and mindfulness.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like you have a higher self, or there's something beyond that's, bigger beyond you?
I mean, I know there's stuff bigger, like.
And I don't mean in human form.
No. If it's something that's like supernatural or the kind of guiding force, like I haven't seen any evidence or have felt any evidence for that. I think there's some idea of kind of a cultural and kind of connectedness between people, just because we're social animals and we empathize with each other. There's kind of a collective connection between people, but I don't think there's anything supernatural or like beyond just our brains. And there's so much about the brain that we don't know about, and a lot of things that like how our consciousness is an emergent property of the brain, but you get hit in the head today and wake up from a coma as a completely different person with completely different personality and taste and stuff. And it's all just because everything that makes us that we know about or have evidence for is an emergent property of our brain. I haven't seen or heard of any evidence to support that there's something beyond just our brains that it causes it. So, I mean, definitely, if someone can present evidence that is testable and verifiable and objective to show that, yeah, there's like souls or spirits or some sort of higher consciousness, if they can present the evidence and it's like verified and I'm happy to believe it.
So I guess you haven't witnessed a miracle.
Well,
but you don't think what you went through was a miracle?
No, it was. I mean, what I had is very treatable by modern medicine, and I think a lot of what people see as miracles, or like the witnessing, is not like a verifiable experience. And there's a lot of things that people see as like miracles, like cancers going into remission. That's something that some cancers naturally do. And there's a lot of things that, I mean, I think of miracles as something that's defying like natural law, or is something that couldn't happen through natural means. And so if a lot of times what people claim to be a miracle is either just really, really unlikely. So, I mean, someone surviving a really rare type of cancer that would likely kill them is probably more possible that happening than, say, winning the lottery. But most people wouldn't say winning the lottery is a miracle.
I guess some people would, just because the odds are so unbelievable.
But most people, like, how many people pray to win the lottery and only one person does? Or like, so like, if there's something that just, what people consider miracles, it usually seems to be different criteria for it. And a lot of what people would claim to be a miracle is still pretty mundane. Because even though like my dad had the same type of cancer I had, or same type of tumor, and it was stage 3, and it was still 75% chance of beating it. So even though it was pretty bad, it was still really good odds of beating it with today's medicine. So, I mean, I understand what people I think are trying to talk about when they mention spirituality and connectedness and kind of mindfulness and being aware of people around you and what you're doing. But I think all of that type of stuff is just what our brains are doing. And there's still so much we don't know about the brain and how it functions. And like there's one example, there's a study or a case where this woman having really bad seizures, and they cut the corpus callosum between the right and left sides of her brain. And she had some like really weird schizophrenia type stuff, and they had basically one personality controlled the left half and one controlled the right half, and they could ask each of them questions. And so they'd ask them, one of the questions they asked was, do you believe in God? And the left side said no, and the right side said yes. So our brains are super complicated, and there's so much we don't know that.
Well, I go back to mindfulness.
I totally accept the mindfulness, and
Yeah.
that's very important. I'm trying to do more of that because most people rush through their day and they don't really pay attention to what they're doing and don't really analyze what they're doing, what's working and not, and then they kind of wonder why they're stuck in something. And so I think
That's
taking time, meditating, taking time to
Yeah.
calm yourself down, really think about what you're doing, think about why you're doing it.
Mindfulness.
That is definitely something I believe in, and I'm trying to do more of that. And I totally get people that kind of coach people on how to be mindful and aware of what they're doing. I love that people are trying to do that because I think so much, especially in this country, people think that they have to work more and more and more instead of smarter.
Yeah, right.
And I think a lot of other countries that have like shorter work weeks and more vacation, where people are happier and more successful and more effective because they're not working themselves to death.
Right.
And so I think if our country was a little more like people took some time
Like
to be more
Europe.
more mindful, more aware, slowed the pace down.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would be a lot better off. And
Oh, absolutely. So, oh my gosh, we're almost down to a minute.
whoa, that went by really quickly.
Is there anything that you want to close with?
Well, I just want to thank you.
I mean, you have already had a plethora of wonderful information, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I can talk about myself for hours now. But the last thing I want to kind of close with is if you have a chance, this is for people watching this, if you have a chance to help someone do it, it not only will help them out, but it makes you feel really good, and it's kind of the right thing to do. And if someone who would like an animation made that help their business out, I'd love to get a call from them and help them be more successful and help them tell their story, because it's what I want my purpose to be in life is to help people with animation and make the community stronger, and I look forward to doing that more.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Karl, for coming on and sharing. And sorry it took so long, but hey, it's
totally
timing.
worth it.
It's all timing, you know. So I appreciate all that you've shared.
Thanks.
And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Voila.